Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. This is going to be the finale of Pan That Palette 2019. This is usually where project panners show off their nice empty palettes. I don't have any nice empty palettes to show you guys today, but I am going to talk about where I'm at with the palettes that I have been working on all year long and what some of the pitfalls were to my success. In these updates, I always talk about two palettes, my baby Pan That palette and my main Pan That palette. I've been working on a baby Pan That palette, a Lancome Duo that was a gift with purchase. It only claimed to have 0.02 ounces of product in it, which is nothing. I repressed the two shadows into my Pan That palette from 2018 so that I had it in one convenient place to reach, and I've been working on them all year long. A little bit more than a year, more like 13 months. Let me show you a quick clip of what my palette looked like last month. And this is what my palette looks like today. The two shadows that I'm focusing on are down here. I did not use them a whole lot in the last month. I am wearing this one on my eyelids today. I like it, it's good, but I did not focus in on these two a whole lot. I was trying to get to the end of the experiment, plus I was doing an advent calendar with a lot of eye products, and I ended up going for a neutrally eye look most days that I pulled an eye product from the advent calendar because I had a lot of neutral glitters and shimmery products. So I kept wearing a lot of the browns that are in my Pan That palette rather than these two. I am wearing this one today. I haven't really had this eyeshadow right here in a project since the finale of my Pan That palette from last year. At the beginning of the year, I was still working on this as an eyebrow powder, and then I stopped working on it for several months and I've started up using it again. And I am working to hit side pan over here, so I think I've expanded the pan a little bit on this guy over the last month. This is probably my most used shadow out of all of these in the last month. I have decided to set a goal for January 31st. This is kind of lofty considering all of the changes going on with my panning projects over the next month, but I have decided I want to hit pan on this guy, and I'm not going to stop using this shadow until I've hit pan. I am going to use this every single day until I've hit pan on this eyeshadow. So that's my goal, is to have pan on this guy by next month's update. Let's move on to my Pan That palette. The Pantastic Ladies theme for 2019 was pan as old as time, and the only criteria was that you worked on the oldest palette you own and try to pan it. My makeup collecting goes so far back that I cannot tell you what my oldest palette is for sure. I also went on a huge depotting spree many years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and I bought like 10 Z palettes and depotted everything I could get my hands on because it was so fun to depot everything and to put it all in magnetic palettes. A lot of my oldest products are therefore in those magnetic palettes. I put myself on a ban from buying more magnetic palettes at some point, and I told myself that if I wanted to depot more, I had to use up some of the depotted products first. The answer was not to buy more magnetic palettes. The answer was to use up the products that I'd already depotted, and then I could depot more. So for the Pan as Old as Time project, I decided to work on a magnetic palette filled with depotted shades, about half of which are some of the oldest shadows I own and some newer just to spice it up. Let me show you a quick clip of the journey my palette has been through since the beginning of the year. And here is what my palette looks like now. Okay, as you can see, this palette was a combination of eyeshadows, blush, setting powders, highlighters, and bronzers. It was kind of the all-in-one palette, and this was such a lovely palette to pan for the year. I never got sick of it. I never got bored with it. I absolutely loved working with these shadows. Unfortunately, there are some shadows I never got around to touching at all. This guy right here, I never used even once this entire year. Not even once. It's a shame. I really didn't use these three shadows up here at all either. I did use them yesterday in a look, finally, because I thought this is ridiculous. I want to use them. So I used these three in a look yesterday. I didn't film yesterday, but I did wear those. The plus side of having a magnetic palette of this size to work on is that it gave me a ton of variety. The downside is that for the way that I use makeup, I could not even touch all of these eyeshadows, and some of them just stared at me like a puppy dog all year long. So in summary, I completely panned and finished two products. This was an eyeshadow. This was a face powder. Both are gone and out of my stash. I hit pan on 1, 2, 3, 4 eyeshadows. That's it. I finished 2, I hit pan on 4. That's all I accomplished from this palette this year. This is the new pan. This pan was not around last month. This is my one big update right here, is this new pan right here. I am so excited that I managed to squeak out one new pan before the finale today. I was really trying to hit pan right here on this shadow. This is basically a matte off-white cream colored eyeshadow from Tarte. It came in a holiday set from years ago, and I've been using this to set my forehead, my cheeks, my chin, and my nose every single day for the last month or so. I do have a good dip going, but I did not manage to hit pan by today. The other exciting news is that this blush is on its last leg. I mean, I should probably repress it. I know there's gonna be at least 3 comments down below suggesting that I repress this. I know, I'm lazy. I did repress some things the other day, but I did not repress this. I probably should have. Maybe I will do that today. So the product you see around the edges is all that's left. I wanted this to be an empty so bad. I wanted this to be in my 2019 empties so bad. And this will most likely be in my January empties for 2020. So it's coming, it's gonna happen, but it did not happen by today. I also barely touched any of these 4 eyeshadows right here. These are all kind of shimmery vanilla shades. I love those shades and I consider them a necessity in my eye looks. I love a shimmery brow bone highlight, but because of the experiment, I did not get around to using really any of those 4. So let's talk about the experiment briefly, and I'm probably gonna have the same conversation in the finale of the experiment, but that's the way it works. I'm gonna talk about it here too. I posted my intro for this project in mid-December, and I kind of made the decision, both in that video and to myself, that I wasn't gonna rearrange this palette at all throughout the year. That the way it looked on January 1st, 2019 is the way it was gonna look on December 31st, 2019. And I really meant that because I have watched some project panners in the past that moved things around a lot and they finished a lot. And so as they finished stuff, they moved things out, they brought new things in, and the palette was constantly shifting and moving. And personally, as a viewer, I found it a little bit distracting. So I thought, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna keep everything as is. Then the experiment came along like a week later. I filmed the intro for the experiment and I started working on the eyeshadows from my Pan That palette along with these 5 eyeshadows from the experiment. And it only took a couple days to realize that I had made a mistake and that I should have put these 5 eyeshadows into my Pan That palette. And that ultimately I had some pretty good dupes in my Pan That palette for all 5 of these shades. So for example, Shimma Shimma, this top shimmery vanilla eyeshadow could have gone in, and all 4 of these shimmery vanilla eyeshadows could have gone out of my palette. This shade right here, Cocoa Bear from Makeup Geek, the second one, could have replaced this shadow right here. Swiss Chocolate from MAC could have replaced this brown right here. And of course, Cherry Cola from Makeup Geek right here could have replaced this cranberry shade right here. And then finally, Corey from MAC, this one right here, could have replaced this shadow right here. I figured that out by about January 3rd, January 4th, and I was like, nuts, what do I do? Should I take these 5 shadows and rearrange my whole palette, even though I declared that I would not do that, and start fresh with my first update for Pan That Palette? Or should I just keep going and hope that I can get through and hit pan on as many of these shadows as I could? Even if I would have moved these 5 shadows into this palette, it still would have been a challenge to use up all these, but I wish I would have done that. In hindsight, I do wish that I would have moved these 5 shadows into the palette and rearranged things so that everything was in this palette, so that I wasn't pulling for these 2 palettes every single day, and so that the 2 pans that I hit in this palette would have been counted towards my Pan That palette, because I am petty like that. So that is an observation that I've been holding on to for the last 12 months that's been kind of eating away at me because it was a bonehead move. And I wish I would have corrected it in the first update or posted a new intro midway through January and said, look, here's some quick changes, just so you guys know, I've decided to do this. We're moving forward. I'm correcting my mistake. And then I could have had this whole year with all these shadows in one palette. And that way I could have removed the erroneous shadows from this palette that I realized I was never really going to get to, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 eyeshadows in this palette barely got touched because of those 5 shadows in that palette. Hindsight is always 20/20. By the way, I had a Mary Kay duo. It was 2 eyeshadows in one pan down here, and it fell out of my palette. I think it was last month's update. It just fell out. Or was it 2, maybe it was 2 updates ago. I don't know, it happened on camera. The whole shadow just popped right out of the palette, fell on the floor, and broke out and landed on the hardwood floor. I did finally repress them. It took 2 pans to fill them up, which sucks. But I ended up just combining the blue and the purple together, and that's what it looks like right there. Now I have a nice blurple. What else can I tell you about Pan That Palette for 2019? I am ready to put all of these eyeshadows away for now. I'm excited about starting my projects for 2020, and they don't involve any of these eyeshadows, at least currently. I am committed to finishing this guy up, obviously. This blush needs to go. I am gonna keep this palette in my bathroom until this blush is gone. I also have not specifically picked out a bronzer to pan for 2020. So until I decide which bronzer I want to pan, I'm going to keep working on this one because I absolutely love this bronzer. It is gorgeous. I do not remember what brand it was. I depotted it so long ago that I have no recollection of what brand it is, but it is a gorgeous reddish brown shade that I just love, and it works really well for my skin tone. So I'm going to keep using these 2 for now until this one is gone. I do think that once this one is gone and I can take out 1, 2, 3 pans from my palette, which means I have that much freed up space. I also did finish a bronzer earlier in the year, so I have that freed up space across all of my palettes. I am going to rearrange these palettes and figure out what I want to depot. I'm going to fill up the space and depot something because that was the whole motivation for me doing this project this year and to work on these shadows, was to create some space in my Z palette so that, 1, I could depot something else, and ultimately in the long run, I can reduce the amount of magnetic palettes that I own because 11 is kind of obscene. And I'd like to get down my numbers of magnetic palettes. But for now, I would like to depot something into the empty spaces I have created. So I will film a video when I get around to doing that, possibly towards the end of January. I am looking forward to it, and I'm waiting for this one to be gone first before I do that, because that's a good chunk of real estate right there. There are two shadows that I would love to continue working on for 2020. This one right here and this one right here. I think it's definitely possible to finish them. But if you were to see all of the eyeshadows I have planned to pan for 2020, you'd know that I might not be able to finish those this year. My plate is very full and I'm excited about it. But for now, that is it for this Pan That palette. This is gonna stay in the bathroom and I'm gonna pull for it every day while I'm panning this. If I get a chance to use any of these shadows, that's great. If not, that's okay too. I have other things that I will be working on starting tomorrow. Well, I'm filming this New Year's Eve, so starting January 1st, I will be focusing in on all of the eyeshadows I need to pan for 2020. I know a lot of project panners, friends of mine, who really want to keep going with what they've started and finish what they've started so that they could see the end result, they could see the accomplishment, they could see the empty pan. I'm the kind of person that I have so much makeup and so much never before used makeup that I feel like giving a year to a select amount of shadows is enough. And although I don't declutter any of them at the end of that year, I feel like I've earned the right to switch shadows. I've focused on these for a year. It's time to switch it up and allow myself the opportunity to play with something else from my stash, to keep it fresh, to keep it interesting. So I know that it's probably hard for some of you to imagine putting this away and not continuing to work with it. I'm okay with it. I feel like I've given these shadows a year and that's fair. I could go on and on and on about this palette. Let me just give you a quick top 5 from this palette. This bronzer is a top 5. I love this bronzer. I'm so glad I put it in this project. I think it could also be used as a blush for some people. It has enough red in it that it could make a nice blush, or like a one and done bronzer blush combo. I also love this Dusty Rose from Mary Kay. You guys know that. I love this eyeshadow so much. It is my perfect transition color. I love a rosy transition shade. I'm wearing it today. I just love this shade. Those are two of them. Also, I fell in love with these two shadows right here. These are both from an indie company called Lala Cosmetics, and she was selling eyeshadows and products on her Etsy shop. It's no longer there. I am so sad. I have DM'd her and said, like, where you at? What's going on? You still okay? Are you gonna come back? She hasn't responded. I don't know if she's taken a break or if she's left the makeup making alone permanently, but this shade was called Blondie and this shade was called Unicorn Kiss. And I am so glad I put them both in my Pan That palette because I loved working on both of them so much. Also, this is Starboy from Looksy Beauty. This was a joy, and I didn't really start to appreciate it until the last couple months, but I used this in so many eye looks over the last couple months. It is gorgeous, and I was just on their website with my friend Elizabeth from Cookie Pans, and we couldn't find it up there. So I don't know if they've discontinued Starboy or what, but it's not up there right now. I hope they bring it back because this is a fabulous shadow. It will add life to any eye look. I don't care how bad you screw up an eye look. If you put a little bit of Starboy on the inner half of your lid, it will fix it. So those were definitely some standouts out of this palette for the year. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking. I've been talking long enough. All right, guys, that is it for Pan That Palette 2019. Thank you so much for watching, supporting, cheering me along throughout this project. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. I will be back later today with the introduction for Pan That Palette 2020. I am gonna have 2 videos up today. I don't have enough days in the month, so look out for my 2020 intro later on today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later today with my intro for Pan That Palette 2020. Bye. Well, fuck. Hi guys, Butterfingers over here. So, if you saw the last clip, my entire palette fell out of my hands in the last 10 seconds of me filming my Pan That Palette finale. And I did have to do some repressing. So, when I cleaned up the mess, this one had shattered, so I repressed it into the center of the pan. And I repressed this one, this one, this one, and this one. These three were all pretty much full, so they don't look any different. This is the Unicorn Kiss shade where I did have pan, and my pan is gone. But shockingly, those two are still okay. So it's all good. It's all good. I'm clumsy.